This is about making sure that, that even if you're the President of the United States, you don't get favorable terms from the government in a settlement of a lawsuit that ordinary citizens would not get.
President Trump's nominee for Attorney General is hitting a couple of roadblocks in his confirmation hearing process, and one of those is Texas Senator John Cornyn. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm Will Dupree. Today, the president has even suggested he may be open to pulling Todd Blanche's nomination until Cornyn is out of office. We've learned from some reports that the two Republican senators, including Thom Tillis of North Carolina, delayed the vote, are meeting with Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. And here to talk more about her reporting into all of this is Gabby Birnbaum with the Texas Tribune. Gabby, welcome back to our show. Thanks for joining us. And there's a lot of developments here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I want to start with the sticking points for Senator Cornyn in this whole process. What are the sources of his concerns?
Yeah, there's sort of two things going on here. So in this original settlement deal, right, between the DOJ and President Trump, the agreement was that the DOJ would create a $1.8 billion fund to give out, taxpayer money to people who, claimants who allege to be victims of weaponization from the department. And then in addition, in an addendum, the department extended sort of immunity from tax audits to Trump and his family and his associates and people who were parties to the lawsuit there. And so Senator Cornyn wants the fund. The DOJ has said they're not going to distribute the fund. It's dead. He wants that in writing. And then he also wants, on the audit, he wants various, amendments in writing, including that, the audit is only retrospective. It wouldn't apply to future, tax issues, and that it would only apply, for example, to the IRS and not to other government agencies.
Okay, so those are some of the assurances that he would like to get. Just before we came on to air, we saw some reports that Senator Cornyn and Senator Tillis from North Carolina had met with Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. Have you heard that yourself? What can you share more about that?
Yeah, the latest reporting is that they've met, haven't heard sort of what exactly went down in the meeting. I think we'll know, right, if a deal emerges, because I would imagine then they would bring the hearing back on. The committee would reschedule the hearing. Certainly they've exchanged paper over the course of the week, but Senator Cornyn has been very clear. He wants these assurances in writing. He said that he sent the DOJ what he called a red line strikeout of sort of exactly what he needs. And he said this morning that he feels that if it was just between him and Blanche, they could get it done. But him and Tillis feel that there are higher ups at the White House who are standing in the way.
As we wait to see if some sort of deal emerges in these next few, maybe minutes or hours even, President Trump, I want to point out, posted online today slamming Cornyn and Senator Tillis. What's notable about what he wrote in that message?
Yeah, I mean, I think President Trump is sort of looking at the situation and suggesting that it might be better to hold off until Tillis and Cornyn are out of office next year. I think that would be a gamble, right? Cornyn and Tillis, I think, have both been clear they want to, get to yes on this nomination. They just need certain assurances. If you wait till next year, you don't know if Republicans will still control the Senate, right? I mean, Tillis won't be there, Cornyn won't be there. Who are their replacements going to be? Are they going to be Republicans or might they be Democrats, given that those are both competitive races? And so I think that's a calculus that the White House will have to make as they consider what to do with this nomination.
Now, the president has also suggested that Cornyn is maybe doing all of this because of his loss in the Senate primary and President Trump's endorsement of his primary opponent, Ken Paxton. What is Senator Cornyn saying about that? How is he responding?
Yeah, Senator Cornyn has said that that's basically a convenient excuse and that it's not true. He said that he's long had problems with this fund since it was announced in May, and that he just wants written assurances, as he's put it, to ensure that the president doesn't get privileges that ordinary taxpayers wouldn't. And so that's been his stance throughout. Senator Tillis, for example, has also talked about that this entire fund is not a good issue for Republicans. He wants to protect some of the frontline senators who are in tough races from having to defend or explain this. And so that's sort of the state of play. Certainly, Senator Cornyn, as you mentioned, lost that May runoff. He won't be coming back next year. President Trump endorsed against him. I think all of that combined allows for senators like Cornyn and others who are not coming back to sort of be more vocal in their criticisms. And as Senator Cornyn himself said today, he feels like he and Tillis speak for more than just themselves. So there are other senators who do have concerns. He just sort of has the political ability to say it right now.
Well, that is Gabby Birnbaum again with the Texas Tribune. Lots of moving pieces with this. We look forward to more of your reporting. You all can read it on the Texas Tribune's website. But Gabby, thanks again for being with us.
Thanks for having me.